Hello everyone, this is Dan Grijzenhout talking to you again, and today I want to discuss some tips and tricks for those interested in consulting to the U.S. from Canada. Before we get too far into the tips and tricks, we need to talk about trade NAFTA legislation. Trade NAFTA is actually what allows consultants from Canada, US, and Mexico to consult in each other's countries up to 1 year at a time. But do remember that they do have to come back across the border at least once within every 6-month period. There's some detailed information on getting your Trade NAFTA Visa card, which includes a list of categories for professions being allowed to enter and work under Trade NAFTA. Canadians with the proper paperwork and credentials can be processed right at the border. So as you're crossing the border, you pay $50, and it has to be exact. They do not give change. And you provide your paperwork, and you get a little white card that says you're approved to work in the United States under Trade NAFTA, and you're free to board your plane or continue across in your car if you're driving down. Your families can travel with you, but they're going to be coming across as tourists, and they're not going to be able to work in the States as well with you. They're basically visiting until such time as you finish your project and come back. Things to know when you cross the border to consult in the U.S. First off, a U.S. dollar check from a Canadian bank account is often not cashable in the U.S. for payment, and vice versa. There are issues with ACH, which is automated clearinghouse transactions, and often banks who have the discretion to accept your check or not will just say they don't accept foreign checks. So you have to be aware of that as you're trying to bring money down or get a check cashed. If they do process the check, be aware they could put a hold on the check for a considerable amount of time, as much as 30 days. So if you need access to that money quickly, you could have a bit of a problem. Under Trade NAFTA, as a consultant, you can get a limited TN U.S. Social Security card, a number that will allow you to open a U.S. bank account. This can be very useful to you if you're getting paid in the United States by check by your client, because now you have a mechanism whereby you can deposit that check in a U.S. account and then wire the funds back to Canada later on to get your bills paid. So keep that in mind. Once you have this TN card, you can walk it into a U.S. government location and get yourself a Social Security number with limitations on it, of course, but it will allow you to open up a bank account in the U.S. There are a few Canadian banks that do have agreements in place in the USA so you can clear checks cross-border. I know Bank of Montreal and Royal Bank of Canada are two of them that do have some reciprocal banks down there that will allow you to have accounts and move money back and forth. So check into that. That might be an option for you as well, as opposed to going to get the Social Security card. Under a business-to-business contract, the USA employer may request that you, as the contractor, have a USA-issued corporation EIN number and a U.S. bank account set up. Under this structure, you'd need to be filing an annual U.S. corporate return, and you would have to create a U.S. resident corporation. So that can start to get painful. A lot of paperwork there, starting to fill out U.S. tax returns, getting visible in the U.S. financial systems and internal revenue systems. And so give that some thought. You're going to be wanting to do an awful lot of consulting down there before you probably want to avail yourself of this option. An alternative under that, though, is if you can find yourself an organization, say you've landed a contract with a client, but that client is demanding this sort of structure. You can find a consulting company, negotiate some terms with them to take a little bit off the top of your contract, and have them represent you to that client, and have that consulting organization then become your actual client who pays you. So it's a little bit more cumbersome. You'll lose a little bit of the money on your project, but at least you're able to go and consult to the client that you're wanting to consult to. Now, if you are able to go directly to them, if they are accepting your TN clearance and you've received a letter from that client allowing you to work with them directly, then you're going to be needing to fill out a couple of forms. One is a 1040 non-residence form, so they don't deduct the non-residence tax, and the other is an 8840 form. If the client has those in hand, you can just get paid your full amount. Then you will receive a W-2 at the end of the year for the work you've performed for that client during the year. And this actually makes filling out your tax forms in Canada very easy when you get to the year end. You can convert the amount of money you received from the client in US dollars, convert it to Canadian dollars, and then you can claim a foreign tax credit in your Canadian return using the schedules on your T1. Closing comments, cross-border consulting can be very lucrative for Canadians, especially with the favorable currency conversion rates that are now in effect. You're most likely going to require, at a minimum, a college-level degree in order to consult in the United States. And your resume has to be strong. It should show at least 5 years of consulting experience before they're going to consider you a professional to work under trade NAFTA in the U.S. and allow you to cross the border that way. You're going to require a letter from your client in that country requesting your assistance as part of your package when you cross the border to get your TN card. So make sure you have that in hand prior to crossing the border as well. You also need to be sure to specifically mention your expertise as one of the categories found in Appendix 1602.d.1 of the Trade NAFTA Agreement. Case in point here, I once listed my trade as computer systems architect when going down to work on a project, and the category said computer systems analyst, and they turned me back because I was not coming down to consult under one of the categories they had defined under Trade NAFTA. So make sure you get your category pretty much word perfect with respect to what they show in their appendix for the types of people that can come down south under the Trade NAFTA Agreement. Bottom line, at the end of this, there is paperwork to deal with. It's not insurmountable. It's a little bit cumbersome, but once you have your TN in hand, you're good for up to a year. You're good for repeat visits under that TN card. Now, one important point with that is that if you come back to Canada and the customs official at the Canadian border who sees your TN card when you're coming back tries to take it from you, and they sometimes do, be sure to let him know that you're coming back again to work under the same contract and to give your card back. You have the right to request your card back for the multiple visits that are allowed within the Trade NAFTA Agreement. So if you let that Canadian official take your card, you're going to be stuck having to qualify all over again the next time you come down. So things to watch out for. There is some new legislation relating to TN-related accounting currently being contemplated in the U.S. I don't know where that's going as yet and what the final resolution to this will be, but be watching the internet to see what new legislation may come into effect relating to consulting and trade NAFTA. So there's some things there that could potentially affect you. This is the end of this presentation. I hope you've received some value from it.